Hi everyone, it's Jennifer. Welcome back to Fiberflex Knitting. Today we're going to be learning how to make this beginner ribbed knit hat. This is so easy and I'm going to show you how to do it every step of the way. Now this hat is done with just some easy knit stitches and purl stitches, and we're going to be knitting it in the round, so there's no seaming required. We're going to go from the bottom, work our way up, cinch the top, and if you want to, totally optional, you can add the little pom-pom as well. Now, you can find the full written pattern over at the Fiberflex blog. We're going to go through the full tutorial here on the channel step by step and stitch by stitch. And you can also get the ad-free pattern PDFs both in my Ravelry shop and my Etsy shop as well. Now, before we get started, be sure to hit the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiberflex knitting updates. I share full project tutorials like this one where I walk you through the whole thing, stitch tutorials, all kinds of tips and techniques, and lots more. So if you haven't hit the subscribe button, be sure and click it and get all the latest Fiberflex knitting video updates. So let's jump in and learn how to make this beautiful hat. Okay, let's take a closer look at this beautiful hat. We are going to start our hat by working in the round. I'm going to show you how to use some circular needles. It's very easy. We're going to cast on our stitches and then we're going to work from the bottom up all the way to the top, do a little bit of a decrease to kind of round off the top, and then I'm going to show you a way to attach a pom-pom so that you can make it removable later if you wanted to wash your hat. We're going to make some beautiful ribbing, and this is a very pretty and stretchy hat that fits all kinds of different head sizes. Our finished hat is about 9.5 inches tall, not including the pom-pom, and it has an 18-inch circumference. However, I just wanted to show you how stretchy this hat is. So it has a lot of stretch and a lot of give to it, but it does, because of the ribbing, it does kind of sit on the head with a snug kind of feeling, not tight, but just has a nice snug feeling to it. But again, this is a very stretchy hat. For this project, you'll need a pair of scissors, a tapestry needle. A stitch marker is really helpful because we're going to be knitting in the round, and it will mark, as you complete each round, it will mark your spot. A tape measure is super helpful, especially if you want to customize the sizing a little bit. And we're going to be using, I have a set of circular knitting needles here. This is a US 11 8mm circular knitting needle, and as you can see, it's kind of short. Some circular needles are very, very long. This is a 16-inch long one, and it's perfect for knitting a hat. I really like this length for hats. So again, a US 11 8mm circular knitting needle, and again, this is the 16-inch length one, in case you're wondering. And then for our yarn, I have one ball here of Bernat Softy Chunky. We're going to be using one ball of this. And each ball of this is 108 yards. And I have here the linen colorway. Now, as a side note, this particular yarn does not come in dye lots, but if you're using like multiple balls of yarn or, scraps or things like that, you want to make sure the dye lots match if you're doing a solid color like I am. If you need to substitute yarn, look for a super bulky 6 on the yarn label. It's the little yarn ball with the number in it, super bulky 6. And look for one that recommends this US 11 needle. We're going to be using the recommended needle size for this hat, and you'll be just fine. So 108 yards of a number 6 super bulky yarn. Also totally optional, but very fun, is this faux fur pom-pom that I have here. I thought it looked really pretty with this color yarn. And again, totally optional if you want to add one too. I picked a brown with like some lighter tones throughout that I thought looked nice with this yarn. Also, you can make a yarn pom-pom. It will take a little bit more yarn, but if you'd rather make a yarn pom-pom for your hat, hop on over to the blog. The link is down below for the pattern, and there is a link and video on how to make a pom-pom on there. So check that out if you'd rather make a yarn one. But a fur pom-pom is what I'll be using for this project. Okay, so I have my yarn and needle and my stitch marker is nearby, okay? To begin, we're going to cast on 48 stitches. Now, if you need to change the circumference of your hat, just work in a multiple of 4. We're going to be doing some ribbing, and if you stay in that multiple of 4 stitches, you can scale it and the ribbing will be okay numbers wise, okay? So what we want to do is we're going to do a long tail cast on. If you're not familiar with this cast on, check out my tutorial for it. It goes into it a little bit more in depth if you're not familiar. But for our long tail cast on, we need to estimate the yarn. So I'm going to do about a wingspan and a half. So that's where I take my yarn in one hand and I pull it across the front of me like a wingspan. And then I'm going to do another half wingspan. And that's a great way to just kind of estimate you know, your tail, because we're using the tail to cast on, okay? Again, check out that tutorial if you're not familiar. Okay, so what we want to do is put a slip knot on our hook to begin. This is also going to count as the first stitch. Wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop. Bring the yarn behind the loop. Now take your needle, reach in, bring up that loop, and tighten. Now this is our first stitch, okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to cast on our stitches. Again, we're going to cast on 48 stitches. So what we're going to do, just really briefly, again, if you need the more in-depth long tail cast on, check it out. But I'm going to kind of zip through this. This going out the front is connected to our yarn ball, and this is our tail back here, okay? So go in with your index finger and your thumb, and we're just going to cast on our stitches. So go around, around, and through. That's 2. Around, around, and through. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They start getting smushed. You can kind of push them back onto this circular needle. 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, and 48. Okay, so here's all our stitches. You can kind of divide them evenly around the circular needle, and I'm actually going to zoom out so you can see the whole thing now. The next thing we're going to do, if you hop on over to the written pattern on the blog, you'll see there's an instruction there that says place marker and join, being careful not to twist. Okay, so that's what we're going to do now. So we have, again, our tail we're just going to kind of ignore right now. Our working yarn is going out here, and our rest of our work is here. So what we're going to do next is we're going to take our stitch marker and place it, okay? Sometimes in patterns that can be abbreviated as PM for place marker, okay? So put it on your needle, and then we're going to take our working yarn, you can kind of grab it, and we're going to make sure, we're going to join, but we're going to make sure not to twist, okay? So that just means you can see our circular needle here, and you can see the work. This is eventually, see this kind of like rope edge that you see? That's going to become the hat, okay? That's like the beginning of our work. So you just want to make sure like it doesn't look twisted like that or something. Make sure all this stuff, all this edging, this work, these stitches that we cast on are all facing in, okay? And that they're not twisted, okay? So now we're going to join. Now that we know everything is not twisted, and you might need to check it here and there, but just make sure. If you twist your work, you'll get what's called a Mobius. So that would be like a figure 8 in your work, or worse if you have multiple twists, okay? We don't want that. Sometimes you want that. That's part of the pattern. This is not one of those instances, okay? So grab your yarn, your working yarn that's connected to your yarn ball, and you're going to grab it in your hand and have that on your right side. And then our stitch marker, we are going to slide over to our other needle so it's sort of out of the way. And then making sure that our work is not twisted, just keep it nice and straight, and you can slide your stitches around so you can get to them. This will kind of loosen up as you work. But now you're going to insert the needle into that first stitch, just like this, and then you're going to knit it as you normally would. Now let me just come up closer so you can see this up close, okay? And then you'll just knit the stitch as you normally would. Okay? And now it's connected. Now we are in the round, we have a circle. Okay? Super easy. Okay, now we're going to knit the next stitch as well. And then we're going to start working on our ribbing. So our ribbing, there's all different kinds of ribbing. We're going to be doing a ribbing that's 2 knit stitches and 2 purl stitches, 2 knit stitches and 2 purl stitches. Sometimes in patterns you may see that as 2 by 2 ribbing, or 2 and the letter X and 2. That's what that's referring to. Okay, that's a nice rib for a hat. So it's very classic. We're going to do purls next. Okay, now when you're knitting and purling in the round, you'll do the same thing for ribbing. You'll do the same thing for every single round. So we're going to learn one round, and then that's really what you'll do for the rest of your hat. Okay, so let's move on to our purls. What we're going to do for purls is, if you're not familiar and need to learn about that, I do have a full tutorial. You can check it out in the corner here. But for purling, you're going to bring your yarn to the front of your work and then work your purl stitch, just like that. It's kind of the opposite of the knit stitch. And we're going to do 2 purl stitches. Just make sure as you're working this hat, because we are going to be going back and forth from knit to purl stitches, that when you're knitting, your yarn is in the back, and when you're purling, your yarn is in the front, okay? So we're going to do 2 knit stitches now. So bring your yarn to the back and knit 2 stitches, just like that, okay? And again, knitting in the round like this, when you get that first round or 2 done, this will kind of loosen up a little bit. You might have to like push your stitches around a little bit more than you would those first couple of rounds, but it will loosen up and kind of start to lift up off the needles a little bit. Okay, so purl 2, bring that yarn to the back, and now knit 2. Okay, 1 and 2. And you can see with this 16-inch circular needle that I have here, it makes it super easy. You can also do this with some double pointed needles. If you'd like to learn about double pointed needles or see a project with them, share with me in the comments below, and you know, we can come up with a project to show you how to do that as well. Okay, so we just knitted 2, and then we are going to purl 2. Okay, I want to show you a quick tip. So sometimes when we're working on a project and we need to set it down and come back later, you might look at your project and say, uh-oh, I don't remember where I left off, so I don't know what to do next. If you look at your work and what we've done so far, especially early on, it's a lot easier to see once you have a little bit of ribbing established. But in these early stages, it may be a little tricky, especially if you're new to knitting. So our knit stitches look like, you can see at the base of these loops here, they're kind of got 2 little V's at the bottom. See those little V's? Those are our knit stitches. And then our purl stitches have like a horizontal bar. So you can see our 2 purl stitches, and then the 2 knit stitches that look like a V, and then 2 purl stitches with that horizontal bar, okay? So if you set your work down and you come back and you say, oh, I just did 2 purl stitches, so now I'm ready to take my yarn, move it back to the back of my work, and knit 2 stitches, okay? And that's just a little tip for if you're not sure where you left off, okay? So let's do this around. Let's continue around, and then we'll rejoin. Once we get towards the end of our round, I'm going to show you how to, we have to move our stitch marker to the other needle and start a new round, and I'll show you how to do that. But otherwise, this is what you'll do for every round, okay? So we just did 2 knit. Now we're going to do 2 purl, okay? So 2 purl, move the yarn back around, and 2 knit. 1 and 2, okay? And just do this for the rest of the round. Again, when we get towards the end, we'll rejoin and I'll show you how to move from one round to the next. Okay, we're just coming up to the end of our round, working those last 2 stitches, which are purl stitches. So purl and purl. Now sometimes you might need to give that tail a little bit of a tug just because it's the beginning, but you know, just give it a little tug and that's fine. Okay, now we're at the beginning. We're back at our stitch marker. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take our stitch marker and we're going to pass it across to this other needle. So lift it up over and onto the other needle. And then we're ready to begin the next round. The next round is the same thing as the round that we just did, okay? So again, we have 2 knit stitches. You can see, remember we talked about the little V's at the bottom, so we need to knit those. So bring your yarn to the back, and then just continue with your round. So just repeat that. So knit 2 and purl 2. Purl and purl. Okay? And so forth. Knit 2 and purl 2 all the way around. Okay? So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to continue, and you can see we're getting a little bit more ribbing here. It's starting to show a little bit more. So what we're going to do now is just keep repeating this round over and over and over again until your hat is the height that you want it to be. We're going to put an easy cinch at the top of our hat, but you just want to keep knitting until your hat is as tall as you would like it to be. Now I'm going to keep knitting mine and grab my tape measure, and when we rejoin, I'm going to measure the height of it just to give you an idea, because we are doing like a women's medium kind of size. But this hat, any kind of ribbed, chunky hat like this, is going to be very stretchy, very forgiving. Definitely like an older child could wear this, you know, etc. So just keep going, and when we rejoin, I'll give you some measurements and we'll look at all of our beautiful ribbing that we've done. Okay, we're just coming up to the end here of this round. Knitting those last 2 purl stitches for our ribbing, and you can see we've gotten some more height to our hat, and I went for about 9.5 inches, okay, from our starting edge. Now what we're going to do is do a little bit of a decrease on the top just to give it a little bit of a rounded look, and then we'll cinch the top and add our pom-pom, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to move our stitch marker over because we're going to start one of 2 decrease rounds, okay? So for our first round of our decrease, I'm just going to slide my stitches around. What we're going to do is we're going to start by doing a knit 2 together. And let me just come in a little bit closer. There we go. So for the knit 2 together, you're just going to insert your needle into 2 stitches and then knit them together. So just knit as you normally would. Okay, just like that. Then we're going to purl 2. So purl and purl, knit 2 together, and then remember to bring your yarn forward, and then purl 2. Just like that. Then knit 2 together, then purl 2, just like that, okay? So do this all the way around, and then when we rejoin, we'll do one more decrease round, and then we'll do some finish work on our hat, okay? All right, here are the last 2 stitches of our round. They're purl stitches, so we're going to purl and purl, okay? Okay, so for our next round, we're going to do one more set of decreases. So bring your yarn to the back, pass your stitch marker over to the other needle, and then we're going to, this time, we're going to knit 1, and then we're going to purl 2 together, okay? So it's kind of like the opposite of what we just did. So purl 2 together, and all you're going to do is just purl as you normally would, but you're going to insert your needle into the 2 purl stitches, okay? So purl 2 together, bring your yarn back to the back, and then knit 1, okay? Bring your yarn back to the front, purl 2 together. Okay, just like that. We're just going to do this all the way around. So knit 1, purl 2 together. We might need to slide our stitches around because there's less of them now, so they're kind of a little bit more spread out. Purl 2 together, and then knit 1, and so forth, okay? So keep working this round, and we'll rejoin in just a minute. Okay, once again, we're at the end of the round. Bring your yarn forward, and we just have a purl 2 to work at the end of this round here. So just purl those together, okay? Now, as you can see, you can kind of straighten this out when you're done your rounds, but our ribs, are like our little columns that we've created, they kind of taper in now, and it just looks really pretty. We have a lot less stitches too on our circular needles. So I'm just going to zoom out a little bit so you can see better, but we're going to grab our scissors and our tapestry needle, and what we're going to do now is get this off the needles. So normally, if we wanted to bind off, we would do some kind of bind off. I like the basic bind off. I use that one a lot, but that would create an open tube. So what we're going to do instead is we can take our stitch marker off too, is we're going to cut the yarn, leaving a long tail. I would say 12 to 18 inches on that. And then we're going to thread our needle, because what we want to do is we need to cinch the top of our hat. Okay, so we're going to go to our first stitch here of our round, and here is our tail like this. And what we're going to do is we're going to start threading these stitches from our circular needle onto our yarn needle. Okay, so go to this first stitch that you would normally come to at the beginning of the round, and we can kind of slide it forward just to help us out. But you're just going to thread that stitch onto the needle, just like that, okay? This is a really easy way to close up a hat, and then you can kind of push that off. Thread the other one onto the needle, push it off. You can actually do a couple at a time if you want to. Here I'm doing 3, and then just push it off. Don't push it off until it's threaded onto the needle though, okay? And then you'll just pull those through as you're doing them. And then we're just kind of pushing our stitches around to help us out a little bit. But just kind of like thread them on, and then just keep doing that until there's no more stitches left, okay? You can kind of, again, pull that needle through as much as you need to. And we have just a few left here, okay? All right, here is our very last stitch, and pull that through, okay? Now you can let go of your needle, kind of put that aside. And here is the top of our hat. Now let me just back up a little bit so you can see better. And all we're going to do is we're going to pull this shut. And look how pretty that looks when you close that. And then what I like to do is, pull it nice and tight. Don't pull it too hard, because if this yarn were to snap and break off, you'd have all these active stitches. Okay, we don't want to have that. But we're going to hold it, pull it tight, and then we're going to send it through 2 loops here at the top with our needle, kind of coming in the opposite direction. And then we're going to pull it almost all the way through until there's a loop. And then you're going to send your needle through that loop, just like that. Okay, now that's going to create a little knot. And then what I like to do is take your needle right next to that knot and go into the hat, turn your hat inside out a little bit, and just kind of pull that through so the top looks nice. It almost looks like a star. And then we're going to go into the inside of our hat now. Okay, and I am going to do that same step I just did like 2 more times. Pull it almost all the way through, create a loop, go into a different area, and do the same thing, just right next to it, and create a loop, okay? I just like to do this because when you wear it, anything that you wear moves around a lot, and we want it to be very secure. So now, without taking your needle off, so now without taking your yarn off the needle, what I'm going to do is just go ahead and weave in my end right here and now while it's still on there. And I'm just going to go into some of these inside plies. You don't want to take it to the front. You want it to stay nice and neat on the inside. And then I like to go in the opposite direction with my tail just to lock everything into place, okay? And I'm keeping it on these inside loops so it doesn't show on the other side. And then what you can do is give that a little snip. And then you can just kind of look at your handiwork. See how it looks? These ribs look beautiful. Everything looks great. Now we're going to kind of flip our hat up, and we're going to take care of this other end. Now this end is very long because we did the long tail cast on, if you remember. So we had to estimate our tail a little bit. So I'm going to grab my needle again, and we're going to just do the same thing. We're going to thread our needle, and then we're going to go onto the inside of our hat. That's why I flipped it up. And we're going to go on the inside of our hat here. Just these inside loops, just like this. We're just going to thread it in one direction here. Just like that. And I like to give it a tug and just kind of straighten things out. And then we're going to come back in the other direction with our needle. Okay, just to get that tail locked into place. Again, when you wear something, it moves around a lot. So you want those tails to be nice and snug. And then just give it a snip. Okay, then we can kind of straighten everything out. And if you notice, our hat looks very narrow. That's totally normal. Ribbing wants to pull in because it is like a stretchy, it's almost like elastic. So as you wear this hat, you can see how far, when I put my hands in it, how much it stretches out, okay? This is a very stretchy, forgiving hat. And the nice thing about a ribbed hat is it's gonna be nice and snug without squeezing. It has a nice little fitted look to it, okay? Now, you can wear your hat as is, but I'm going to show you how to put a pom-pom on there if you want to. Okay, I have two pom-poms here because I wanted to show you two different types of pom-poms you may see. I have one pom-pom here that has just like a tie on it, okay? And you can just kind of tie it onto your hat. That's one type of pom-pom that you may see. Another pom-pom that you might see is one with an elastic loop. And I'm going to show you why this is so helpful. Because if you want to launder your hat, if you do an elastic loop kind, you can sew a button to the inside of your hat, and then you can hook your loop onto it. And this will allow you to remove the pom-pom when you go to wash the hat. These faux fur pom-poms are not washable. They'll kind of get messed up. They need to just be spot cleaned. But your hat, if you used washable yarn, you can hand wash it. Some yarns you can machine wash. Always check your yarn label for laundering instructions. So if you look at your yarn label, mine is on the back here, it says machine washable and dryable, okay? With any handmade items though, I would just be very careful because it is a handmade item. Just be very gentle. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm going to show you how to do the method with the button. Now this one, you would just take the two ends and tie it right on, okay? This one, I'm going to show you how to sew a button to the inside. Any button, this is a great thing for like those odds and ends buttons that don't really match anything. It's going to go on the inside of the hat, so it doesn't matter how it looks. Now, depending on your button, you might need to go to a smaller needle. Just practice passing the needle through, make sure it fits, okay? My gold needle that I had earlier, the eye of it is a little bit too wide for this particular button. So I needed to go to a smaller needle. And you can see that this needle, I can just send it right through, okay? Now, for the yarn, I had a scrap piece of yarn here. I pulled it apart so that just one ply was left. And I'm going to use that because it's a little bit thinner also to go through the button. You can pull your yarn apart, or you could use something, a thinner piece of yarn or a piece of embroidery floss even. Okay, so this is the outside of our hat. We're going to go into the inside of our hat, and you'll want to put your button right in the middle like this. And what you're going to do is you're going to just sew it right on with this matching piece of yarn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it almost all the way through. Make sure it's centered. Now again, this is the inside of the hat because this button is going to be concealed. Also, as a side note, if you are using an extra button, just make sure it's a button that's washable. Some buttons are not. Buttons that are like hand painted or made of, sometimes you can buy buttons that are like made of pottery, clay buttons, things like that. Some of those may not be washable. Just make sure you find one that's washable. Plastic is fine for this type of thing. Okay, and once you've passed it through a couple times, then you can tie a knot. I've done this about 3 times. And then, this is on the inside of the hat, so you can just kind of snip this. And then turn your hat right side out. And if you have a hat, or a loop rather, that's a little bit bigger, it might be kind of hard to put it through here, but you can use your needle if you need to, or you can kind of push it through. It's up to you. But if you use a needle, just thread your needle, the loop onto here, send it through that middle hole, turn it right, turn it inside out, and then you're just going to take your loop and you're just going to go around this button a couple of times, okay? The more times you go around, the less floppy it will be. Sometimes pom-poms kind of flop around a little bit, and you can kind of give it a test. If it's a little bit floppy, go back in here and just, wrap it around a couple more times, okay? And that will allow you to remove the pom-pom to wash it, okay? And then if we turn it right side out, you can see, just straighten everything out. You can kind of fix your pom-pom a little bit, but you can see how pretty this looks with our pom-pom one here. And now our hat is complete. So that is how you make an easy ribbed knit hat. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiberflux knitting updates. Happy knitting, everyone!